Hello and welcome back again, Coffee Beans. This is General Engineering. Definition of terms. Part 3. Savonius. A vertical axis wind turbine designed by S.J. Savonius of Finland from the 1920s and 30s. Shaped like a barrel split from end to end and offset along the cut. They are drag machines, and thus give very low RPM but lots of torque. Secondary surface area. The area that extends from the primary surface area into the fluid being conditioned to enhance the heat transfer. Second law deals with the quality of energy degradation. Sensible heat that causes a change in the temperature of an object or location. Series. In DC electrical circuits such as a battery bank or solar panel array. This is a connection where all the negative terminals are connected to the neighboring positive terminals. Voltage increases, but amperage stays the same. In AC circuits such as a wind generator alternator, each coil is connected to the one next to is, and so on, again increasing voltage but leaving amperage the same. Opposite of parallel. Servo motor. A motor used for motion control in robots, hard disk drives, etc. Generally designed more like an alternator than a standard motor. Setting angle. The angle between the blade chord and the plane of the blade's rotation. Also called pitch or blade angle. Shaft. The rotating part in the center of a wind generator or motor that transfers power. Shape factor. Is the ratio of plastic section modulus to the elastic section modulus. Short circuit. Is an opposition of practically zero. Resistance of wire which is 1/1000 ohms and current equals 6000 for a 6-volt source. Example 1 equals volt over resistance equals 6/1/1000 equals 6000 ampere. Short circuit. 1. Parts of a circuit connected together with only the impedance of the leads between them. 2. In wind generators. It is connecting the output leads directly together so as to heavily load a generator in high winds. This creates a short circuit path back to the generator, bypassing all other loads. Shunt. An electrical bypass circuit that proportionally divides current flow between the shunt and the shunted equipment. It also allows high current measurements with low current equipment. Shunt regulator. A bypass device for power not needed for charging batteries. Slip ring. Devices used to transfer electricity to or from rotating parts. Used in wound field alternators. Motors. And in some wind generator yaw assemblies. Specific speed. It expresses the relationship between the speed in RPM, discharge in GPM, and the head in feet. Specific volume. Is volume per unit mass. Reciprocal of density. Spectral distribution. A functional or graphic expression of the relation between the spectral energy flux. Spectral photon flux. Or fluence rate per unit wavelength. And wavelength. Spectral energy flow rate. The radiant energy flow rate per unit wavelength interval at wavelength lambda. Spectral energy fluence. The energy fluence per unit wavelength interval at wavelength lambda. Spectral energy fluence rate. The radiant energy fluence rate per unit wavelength interval at wavelength lambda. Spectral energy flux. The radiant energy flow rate per unit plane surface area per unit wavelength interval at wavelength lambda. Spectral photon fluence rate. The photon fluence rate per unit wavelength interval at wavelength lambda. Spectral photon flux. The photon flux per unit wavelength interval at wavelength lambda. Star. A coil connection scheme for 3-phase alternators and generators in which all 3 coil phases are connected in parallel, they all share a common connection. Startup. The wind speed at which a wind turbine rotor starts to rotate. It does not necessarily produce any power until it reaches cut-in speed. Static discharge head. Vertical distance from the center line of the pump to the discharge water level. Static lift. A vertical distance between the source and discharge water in a pump installation. Static pressure schedule. Static pressure settings used for the stimulated cure. Static suction head. Vertical distance from the free suction water level to the center line of the pump. Static suction lift. Vertical distance from the free suction water level to the center line of the pump. Stationary. With wind generator towers, it refers to a tower that does not tilt up and down. The tower must be climbed or accessed with a crane to install or service equipment at the top. Stator. Is the stationary part of an electric motor. It contains pairs of cores made up of thin sections of soft iron. The cores are wound with insulated copper wire to form one or more pairs of magnetic poles. Stokes equation. The velocity at which a sphere will rise or fall in a liquid varies as the square of its diameter. Strain. Is a change in form produced by a stress. Strain hardening. Is increasing the hardness and strength by plastic deformation. Stress relieving. Is the heating of a metal body to a suitable temperature and holding it at that temperature for a suitable time for the purpose of reducing interval residual stress. Stress-strain diagram. Graph of stress is a function of strain which is constructed from data taken from the force deformation curve. Sump pump. Pump. Usually automatic and electric powered. To empty a sump. Tail boom. A strut that holds the tail vane to the wind generator frame. Tape drive motor, a type of permanent magnet DC motor often used as a generator in small wind generator systems. Taper, the change in wind turbine blade width chord, along the length. Tassel, the staminate inflorescence of maize composed of panicle spikes. Temper, is a condition produced in a non-ferrous metal by mechanical or thermal treatment, for example. Annealed temper, soft, hard temper, spring temper. Temperature difference, refers to the degree of change between two temperatures. Temporary magnet, a material that shows magnetic properties only while exposed to an external magnetic field. Tension members, are slender structural members subjected to tensile stress, that is tie rods. Hangers, test sieve, a sieve, intended for the particle size analysis of the material to be sieved. That conforms to a test sieve standard specifications. Thermodynamics, is the science of energy and entropy. It deals with heat and work and these properties of substances that bear a relation to heat and work. It deals with transformation of energy of all kinds from one form to another. Thermoplastic, substances that melt on heating and are processes in this state by a variety of extrusion and molding process. Thermosets, substances that cannot be melted and remelted. Thrust, in a wind generator, it refers to the wind forces pushing back against the rotor. Wind generator bearing must be designed to handle thrust or else they will fail. Tilt up, a tower that is hinged at the base and tilted up into position using a gin pole and winch or vehicle. Tip, the end of a wind generator blade farthest from the hub. Tip speed ratio TSR. It is the ratio of how much faster than the wind speed that the blade tips are moving. Total surface area, is the sum of the primary surface area and the secondary surface area. Toughness, is the term applied to the capacity of a material to resist fracture under impact loading. Tower, a structure that supports a wind generator. Usually high in the air. Trace metals, trace elements regulated because of their potential for human, plant, or animal toxicity, including cadmium, copper, chromium, mercury, nickel, lead, and zinc. Trailing edge, the edge of a blade that faces away from the direction of rotation. Turbine pump, a type of pump having one or more stages, each consisting of an impeller on a vertical shaft, surrounded by stationary and usually symmetrical guide vanes. Turn, in winding stator coils. This is one loop of wire around a form. A coil will often be referred to by how many turns of a certain gauge wire are in each coil. Twist, in a wind generator blade. It is the difference in pitch between the blade root and the blade tip. Generally, the twist allows more pitch at the blade root for easier startup, and less pitch at the tip of better high-speed performance. Two-phase flow, change in phase, liquid to gas, gas to liquid, due to the changes in pressure and temperature. That takes place while the fluid is circulating through the heat exchanger. Tyloses, foam-like structures that may swell to occlude or partially fill the vessel lumen. Ultimate bending strength, maximum bending stress developed in a material before rupture caused by a flexural load. Ultimate shear strength, maximum shear stress that can be sustained by a material before rupture caused by a shear load. Ultimate strength, it is the unit stress occurring when a material is carrying its maximum load, the amount of stress which produces failure by increasing the unit stress until breakage or rupture occurs. Undersize, that portion of the charge that has passed through the apertures of a stated sieve. Unit heater, air heater suspended within a room. Air is drawn by fan over a heat exchanger heated either by electricity, stream, hot water, or direct burning petroleum fuel. Unit stress, is the internal resistance per unit area that results from an external force. Vane, a large, flat piece of material used to align a wind turbine rotor correctly into the wind. Usually mounted vertically on the tail boom. Sometimes called a tail. Vertical axis wind turbine, a wind generator design where the rotating shaft is perpendicular to the ground, and the cups or blades rotate parallel to the ground. Voltage, a measure of electrical potential difference. 1 volt is the potential difference need in a circuit to make 1 ampere flow, dissipating 1 watt of heat. Volt ampere, in an AC circuit. This volts times amperes without factoring in the power factor derived from the phase angle. Volume weight, apparent specific gravity. It is the ratio of the weight of an equal volume of water. Watt, 1 joule of electrical energy per second. In DC circuits, watts equals volts times amperes. In AC circuits, watts equals volts times amperes times the cosine of the phase angle. William Gilbert, father of electricity, an English physicist. Wild AC, alternating current that varies in frequency. Wind generator, a device that captures the force of the wind to provide rotational motion to produce power with an alternator or generator. Windmill, a device that uses wind power to mill grain into flour, but informally used as a synonym for wind generator or wind turbine, and to describe machines that pump water with wind power. Wind turbine, a machine that captures the force of the wind, called a wind generator when used to produce electricity, Call the windmill when used to crush grain or pump water. Windward, toward the direction from which the wind blows. Workability is the characteristic of a material that measures the ease with which it can be worked or shaped. Working fluid, the heat transfer fluid that changes the temperature of another fluid by the absorbing energy or supplying energy. Working stress, allowable unit stress, is the highest unit stress to which a material should be subjected for a specific purpose. Worsteds are cloths made from combed wool fibers laid parallel to each other by passing through metal comb. Woven wire cloth, a sieving medium of wires that cross each other to form the apertures. Wrought alloy steel is a steel that contains significant quantities of recognized alloying metals, the most common being aluminum, chromium, etc. Yaw rotation parallel to the ground. A wind generator yaws to face winds coming from different directions. Yaw axis, vertical axis through the center of gravity. Zeroth law states that when two bodies have equality of temperature with a third body, they in turn have equality of temperature with each other. Hope it helps. Thank you again for listening. Please like, subscribe and comment your suggestion on topics you want to hear. Links of previous topics are stated in the description box below. See you in the next part. Bye. Rar.